The Girl Who Built Generations. The story of Zana. Zana was only 12 years old when she stood at the train station with a small suitcase, a worn Bible, and a heart full of fear. The year was 1948. The world was still healing from war, and opportunities in her small European village had disappeared. Her parents, struggling to feed their family, made a painful decision. Anne would travel to America to live with distant relatives and have a chance at a better life. She did not want to leave. She wanted one more morning in her mother's kitchen, one more walk with her father through the fields, one more hug from her younger brothers. But life was asking her to be brave long before she was ready. As the train pulled away, Anne pressed her hand against the window and watched her family grow smaller and smaller until they became only a memory. By the time she arrived in New York, nothing felt familiar. The streets were loud, the buildings were taller than she had ever imagined, and the language sounded like a song she did not know the words to. Her relatives gave her a place to sleep, but they had little time for a lonely girl who spoke broken English. At school, children laughed at her accent. Some teachers thought she would never catch up. Neighbors said she would not survive in America. But Anne never argued with people who doubted her. She simply worked. Every morning she woke before dawn to help around the house. Every afternoon she stayed late at school, copying words from books and practicing English until her hand ached. At night she read by the light of a small lamp, determined to create a life her parents would be proud of. Years passed, and the shy immigrant girl became a young woman of quiet strength. At 21, Anne met a kind mechanic named Robert Zana at a church social in Ohio. He was patient, hard-working, and he admired Anne's courage. They married 2 years later in a small ceremony attended by family, friends, and a few neighbors who had come to know the woman who never gave up. Life was not easy. Robert worked long hours at the garage, and Anne cleaned houses, sewed clothes, and took bookkeeping jobs to help pay the bills. There were months when they had to choose between fixing the car or replacing worn-out shoes for their children. But their home was always full of warmth. Anne believed that love was not something you spoke about. It was something you showed. She showed it in packed lunches, in late-night talks at the kitchen table, in patched-up jeans, and in the way she sat beside her children when they were sick. She and Robert raised 4 children in a small white house with blue shutters. Anne taught them to work hard, tell the truth, and never forget where they came from. "Your roots give you strength," she often said, "but your choices give you wings." Her children grew up to become a teacher, a nurse, a firefighter, and a small business owner. They married, had children of their own, and every Sunday the Zana house was filled with laughter, food, and stories. To her grandchildren, Anne was more than a grandmother. She was a storyteller, a baker of apple pies, a keeper of family history, and the person who never forgot a birthday. They loved to hear the story of the little girl who crossed the ocean alone. "Weren't you scared, Grandma?" they would ask. Anne would smile and say, "Every day. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's deciding that something else matters more." As the years passed, her hair turned silver and her hands grew softer and slower, but her spirit never changed. On her 85th birthday, her family gathered in the backyard under strings of lights. There were 43 people there, children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, all because one 12-year-old girl had once chosen courage over comfort. After dinner, Anne stood up and looked around at the faces she loved. "They said I wouldn't survive," she said quietly, "but I didn't come to survive. I came to build." There was silence, then tears, because everyone understood what she meant. The girl who left home with nothing had created a legacy of kindness, hard work, and love. Her journey had not only changed her own life, it had changed the lives of everyone who came after her. When Anne passed away peacefully 2 years later, her family found a letter in her bedside drawer. It read, "If you remember anything about me, remember this. Life will break your heart sometimes. People will doubt you. You will feel lost, but never let hardship decide who you become. Build with what you have, love with your whole heart, and leave the world better than you found it. Today, that letter hangs framed in the living room of the family home. And every Sunday, when the family gathers and the house fills with laughter, someone always tells the story of Zana, the 12-year-old girl who crossed an ocean with nothing but faith and built generations.